Okay, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night. It means halacha and Tanya. So we're probably finishing up tonight the dinim of mezuzahs that we're learning the last few weeks. We learned the obligation is on a door that has of a room that's 6 feet by 6 feet. If it doesn't have a door, there's still an argument if you need a mezuzah, so we put up without a bracha. And now there is a Chabad custom, not the Chabad, other people have that too, that we don't use metal cases for the mezuzah. Halachically, it's allowed, but we don't use metal cases for mezuzah. We either use plastic, wood. Many people just do paper with the thick plastic over it. The reason why many people have a custom of not using metal is because the whole concept of mezuzah, as it says in the pasuk, is leman yarichon yamecha, that you should live long. But we know metal shortens the life of a person, and therefore, like we know on the mizbeach, on the altar, they weren't allowed to touch any of the walls, any of the stones with metal. If any stone was touched by any metal, even for a second, that stone had to be replaced in the mizbeach. Why? And the Gemara says because the mizbeach was there to lengthen the life of a person. Metal is used as war weapons, so therefore you don't do something that lengthens the life of a person with something that shortens the life of a person. So in Chabad, the custom is we don't use metal mezuzahs. Now you have to be also careful when you put up a mezuzah, especially if it's an outside mezuzah. You have sunlight, sun can hurt, penetrate the mezuzah. Rain can ruin a mezuzah. So if you have an outdoor mezuzah, you need to make sure that it's a waterproof covering, because otherwise you might have a problem with rain. And, when you check the mezuzahs, like we learned twice in 7 years minimal, so you have to make sure that the mezuzah, wasn't hurt by the elements, like they say. Okay, now, before you put up the mezuzah, you make a bracha. Asher kitshanu b'mitzvesa v'tzivanu l'gboa mezuzah. Now, the bracha is even if you're putting up, let's say, 5 mezuzahs at the same time, you still make the bracha l'gboa mezuzah, because the mitzvah is to put up a mezuzah. Every door needs a mezuzah, but you're not putting up mezuzahs. You're putting up one mezuzah on each door. That is the mitzvah. So the bracha is l'gboa mezuzah. Now, when you make a bracha, it has to be on a room which is definitely obligated that you need a mezuzah. Remember, we mentioned a doorway that doesn't have a door. Not everybody says you need a mezuzah. So therefore, you can't make a bracha on such a door. So when you put up a mezuzah on a door, you have to make sure that that doorway has a door, and then you're able to make a bracha. Now, in halacha, it says you don't make a shechianu, when you buy a new house, let's say, and you're going to be putting up mezuzahs. Do you make a shechianu when you put up the mezuzah? And the answer is you don't. Why don't you make a bracha on shechianu when you put up mezuzahs? So the answer really is because you already made a shechianu when you bought the house. And also it's questionable, the poskim discuss, if it's not a mitzvah that you have from time to time, it's whatever. The bottom line is that when you don't make a shechianu the first time you put up a mezuzah. Now, who makes the bracha on the mezuzah? Okay, so let's say you have a house with 10 doorways, let's say, that need a mezuzah. So the din is as follows. Normally, the head of the household, the man, should be making a bracha on the mezuzah. The truth is, a woman is also obligated in putting up a mezuzah. So, and if it's community property, let's say like it is in California, it doesn't really matter. They both own the house. But another important thing that people mistake this din as, let's say you're putting up 5 mezuzahs at the same time, and another 5 you're going to get later. You can't have 5 different people making 5 different brachas on the mezuzah that you're putting up in the same house. Because one bracha covers all the mezuzahs that you're putting up now. So you have to decide which one person is going to make the bracha. I'm putting up those mezuzahs. Now you can have 5 different people putting them up, but the first one that puts up the first mezuzah is the one that makes the bracha, and everybody has in mind it goes for the other mezuzahs in the house. Now, what happens if you have 5 mezuzahs today and you're going to get another 5 mezuzahs tomorrow and another 2 the next day, whatever? Then because it's a separate day, or even much later during the day, if you put up mezuzahs, let's say in the morning, and then at night you're going to be putting up other mezuzahs, then you're going to make a new bracha because there's a break of a long time between them. But if at one setting, so to speak, you're going to be putting up 5 mezuzahs, you make one bracha only, and you put up the 5 mezuzahs. Now, what happens if the owner is not going to be putting up the mezuzah? For whatever reason, they're not home. They ask a friend to come and put up the mezuzah. Okay, so then the shliach, who is appointed by the owner or the people living in the house, again, it could be husband, wife, it could be the kids, whatever. So because he is doing it for them, he is allowed to make the bracha. Preferably, if the owner of the house is there, if the husband or wife, either one, they should actually be the ones making the bracha because it's their obligation. But the shliach can make the bracha for them. And it's interesting, there's certain mitzvahs, to go off topic for a second, but it's a very interesting concept in halacha. Why can't I make, like we just said, I can make a shliach to put up a mezuzah for me. That we just said is no problem. But why can't I make a shliach to put on tefillin for me? I say, you know what, my friend, you'll be my agent, you'll be my shliach, my proxy, and you'll put on tefillin for me. Or you'll do lulav and esrog for me, or you'll eat matzah for me. So the Rishonim write, that doesn't work. And the point is, mitzvah shebegufay, a mitzvah that is not the outcome. The mitzvah that your body has, you cannot make a shliach for. A mitzvah that the basic part of the mitzvah is the outcome of the mitzvah. In other words, the outcome is not that I should put up a mezuzah. The house needs a mezuzah. It doesn't matter who puts it up. So then I could appoint a shliach to do the action for me of putting up the mezuzah in the house. It's not a mitzvah on me, on my body. So in other words, if I tell somebody to put on tefillin, I tell you, put on tefillin for me. And you're going to do it for me. So the actions are considered as if I did it. In other words, I have a mitzvah putting on tefillin. So if I tell you, you will be my shliach to put tefillin on your head for me, your hand and head for me. Why isn't that valid? Yeah, I put on tefillin. The actions are mine because he's my agent. But on whose head did I put on tefillin? On his head. Tefillin have to be put on my head. And that I can't make a shliach for. I can make a shliach to do an action for me. I have an obligation to put up a mezuzah. Mezuzah needs to be there. It's not that my body has to, like putting on tefillin. My body has to put on tefillin. So if I point an agent to do it for me, so the action might be considered that, yeah, I put on tefillin, but on whose head? On his head. If somebody else eats matzah for me, okay, let's say the action is like I did it. I ate matzah in your stomach. That doesn't work. Matzah has to be eaten in my stomach. And the same thing with lulav and esrog. So a mitzvah, the expression in places here, in Kedusha and other places, is that a mitzvah that's incumbent upon your body, you can never appoint an agent to do it. If it's a mitzvah, I'll give you an example, even to do Kedushin to a woman for me. In the time of the Gemara, it's very common. Abraham did that with Eliezer. He sent Eliezer to do Kedushin with Rivka. And when he gave her the rings, the Rashi said that was the act of Kedushin. Because what's important over there is the action of Kedushin. It's not my body has to eat or wear something. There has to be an action of kedushin. So if he does it for me, it's like I did it, but it doesn't have to be on my body or in my body or something like that. So bottom line is, you're allowed to appoint a shliach to put up the mezuzah for you, and he can even make the bracha if necessary. I mean, if the owner's not around. Now, what happened ideally? It's preferred that if you're putting up, questionable in halacha, but some people say, and therefore would be better to do this, and that is, let's say I'm putting up 5 mezuzahs at the same time, and I'm making one bracha for all 5. It would be preferable not to talk until I put up all 5. Now, if you're talking things pertaining to the mitzvah of mezuzah, it's not a problem because it's all part of the mitzvah that you're doing. But if you want to talk about the weather or the elections or whatever, so then it's definitely preferred not to talk things not pertaining to the mitzvah, because there are opinions that say if you made a separation, you talked about things not pertaining to it, you would have to make a new bracha. Okay, if you put up a non-kosher mezuzah, you have to put up another one. Okay, now another interesting thing. What happens, God forbid, a mezuzah fell down. The mezuzah was up on the wall and it fell down. So because you didn't take it down, I mean, like this, you know what you're doing. You took it down and then you're going to put it back up. So then you don't make a new bracha. But because it fell by itself, then the din is, if you want to put up the mezuzah again, you have to make a bracha, even if it's 3 minutes later. Mezuzah that fell down and you're putting it up, you need to make a new bracha. But what happens if you took it down to check? Now here there's different customs for making a bracha. Let's say I took down my mezuzahs to check, and I got them back 5 days later. You're lucky. So then you make a new bracha, even though they were kosher, even if the mezuzahs were all kosher. But the bottom line is, it went through 1 or 2 days. Because after 1 or 2 days, then you make a new bracha. If you got it back the same day, and they're all kosher, and you put them back, you don't make a new bracha because you took them down knowing that you're going to be putting it back. But if it was down for a few days, then the din is that you make a new bracha on the mezuzah. Okay, this basically finishes the dinim of mezuzah. So we're going to continue in the next dinim in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch that we're using as a base, and that is getting ready for davening. The person getting ready to prepare themselves for davening. Now, there's a pasuk that says, "He came likras Elokecha Yisrael." Prepare yourself to daven Yid. In other words, and it says, it's very simple. When a person is going into a king, okay, you don't go in your pajamas. Bottom line, right? You don't walk in your pajamas into a king. Maybe in America, maybe nowadays they would. Today, everything goes. But normally, in normal times, when people were normal, you didn't go to a king in your pajamas. You went dressed properly. You're talking to the king. Especially if you're talking to the king because you're asking him for things that you need. You need the king to do favors to you. So for sure, you're going to dress appropriately. So therefore, it says you have to, when you go daven, you have to dress properly in respectable clothing. Like you're going before a big officer and a general. Even if you daven at home. You're davening at home. Nobody's there. Nobody sees you. But the fact is, you're still davening Tasha. Hashem is there, and that's whom you're talking to. So therefore, you're supposed to daven in respectable clothing. I'm not talking, God forbid, somebody's very sick in the hospital, and they're in the hospital and they're in the hospital robes and all that. Yeah, that's a different story. Or I'm taking a person who's confined mamish to bed, they're really sick. I'm not talking about that. That's their excuse. But otherwise, a person should daven in proper clothing, respectable, to meet the king, because it's very simple logic. You're asking the king for your needs. Show him that you respect him. If you're respecting the king, then the king will perhaps, or for sure. And let me just say one thing. There is no question that people always say, I daven to Hashem, he doesn't answer me. Why doesn't Hashem answer me? The reality is Hashem answers everybody's tefillah. Sometimes the answer is no, you're not getting it. But he answers. Hashem tells us to behave the way he behaves. When you talk to somebody, you expect them to listen. When we talk to Hashem, Hashem listens. Hashem talks to us, we don't listen. But Hashem listens to us. He didn't answer my prayer. Who said he didn't answer your prayers? Hashem answered our prayers. You asked for something. Hashem said, you know what? The answer is no. You don't need it. You don't want it. You don't deserve it. Or one thing is for sure. It's better that you don't have it. So davening is a very spiritual time, especially according to Hasidus, that a person needs to daven. I just want to mention a few cases where he's talking about preparing for davening. I'm going to say as follows. Nowadays, I'm talking about men, bottom line, at the present. Today we have shirts and pants. Years ago, as you see in the pictures, the men also wore long robes. They didn't have shirts and pants. Then, according to halacha, it was mandatory for a man to wear a gartel, the rope around the waist, when he davened. It was mandatory according to halacha. Why? Because the Gemara learns out from Sukkim that you cannot have the libe, ein libe roya esa eva. The heart cannot see the nakedness, the lower parts of the body. When a person davens, and according to many opinions, when you learn, it's forbidden that the heart should see the lower parts of the body. What does it mean, see? So therefore, it was mandatory in the time of the Gemara talks about this, they actually wore a gartel around the waist to separate between the higher and the lower. It was mandatory. Nowadays, that there's shirts and pants. So Taisus in the Gemara explains, which is from Rashi's grandson era. So Taisus says that nowadays you don't need a gartel. Why don't you need the separation between the heart and the lower parts of the body? Because you have a separation. There's a shirt and there's pants, and that's what it is. You don't need it. Chassidim still do it, and I'll explain why in a second. But based on this, there's a very important thing that people need to keep in mind. And that is, if somebody, God forbid, is in a hospital with a hospital gown, that you're not wearing shirts and pants, you're not allowed to daven and say a bracha without putting something around your waist. It's forbidden to say a bracha or to daven because then your heart is seeing the lower parts of the body. It doesn't apply to women for whatever reasons, but by men. So again, even though a lot of people today in the non-Chassidic world, majority of non-Chassidic world doesn't wear a gartel, okay? But if, God forbid, somebody is wearing, or just even at home, you're not wearing shirts and pants, you're just wearing a robe, you must have a gartel. Now, it doesn't have to be a black thing. You can have the belt of the robe or whatever it is. You can put on a belt, whatever it is. There has to be a separation between the higher and the lower parts of the body. Now, by Chassidim, they anywhere wear a gartel when they daven. Why? Because of this pasuk we just said. Prepare yourself. Prepare yourself to meet your king, God. Okay, so a Jew, as preparation for davening, we wear a garter to show now we're davening, now we're communicating with Hashem in a direct way. So that's why for Chassidim it's very important that they wear a garter. Now, what things need a garter, what things don't, everybody should speak to the mashpia. Some people always wear a garter, some people will do it by davening, not by kiddush, yeah, whatever. Whatever it is, by Chassidim, the men, and another interesting thing. The other types of Chassidim, Hungarian, Polish, those types of Chassidim, they wear gartel starting from bar mitzvah. They wear gartel starting from bar mitzvah. In Chabad, the Rebbe writes, our custom is that we start wearing a gartel when we get married. And the Rebbe connects gartel with talis, Kabbalistically, why we don't. But what was interesting, though, and Bachim knew this, I don't know how many other people knew this, when Bachim would go into the Rebbe for a yechidus, private audience, every year we went in for our birthday for like 30 seconds, okay? When a Bachim would go into the Rebbe for yechidus, the Bachim would put on a gartel underneath the jacket. Not over the jacket, but underneath the jacket. When they went in, that was the minute. Went into the Rebbe, you would wear a gartel going into the Rebbe. But that's it, not by davening. And again, in the Sephardic community, they start wearing a talis at bar mitzvah. And that's bar mitzvah they start wearing in the Sephardic community. Ashkenazi community, we don't wear a talis until we get married. So in Chabad, we don't wear a gartel also until we actually get married. Okay, that's as far as that aspect of it. Okay, now, before davening, it's preferable to give tzedakah. It's really a Gemara. Rabbi Lazar Yohev Pruta La'ani Va'adir Matzah. It's a Gemara in Bava Basra. The Gemara says Rabbi Eliezer, before he davened, would give a pruta, coin, to a poor man, and then he davened. And he quoted a pasuk, the Gemara quotes the pasuk that says in Tehillim, Ani b'tzedek echezeh panecha. I with tzedek, meaning tzedakah, with tzedakah I will see your face. And the Rebbe spoke about this many, many times, of giving tzedakah before davening. Why is that? It's a very simple, as we use the word many times, it's a very simple business investment. Because when a Jew is davening to Hashem, as we say in the Slichas, the expression, L'cha Hashem atzdaka, to you Hashem is kindness. We're asking God in davening, right? The Gemara says, there's a pasuk, Abir Leiv, mean the strong-hearted people. So the Gemara says that refers to tzaddikim, halachikim mitzdaka, that are distant from asking Hashem for tzedakah. Tzaddikim don't have to ask Hashem for tzedakah. Why not? It's a very simple thing. Hashem gives us mitzvahs to do. Or let me go back a second. A boss hires a worker. The worker works, does a good job, does the job well, and then the worker comes to get paid. The boss is not giving him tzedakah. He's not giving him charity. He worked, he deserves it, you're paying him what he deserves. Tzedakah is when you give somebody something they don't deserve. Somebody asks you for tzedakah. I mean, what, they did something for you? Theoretically, they don't deserve it. What is tzedakah? You give them anything. When a normal person, not a tzaddik, when a normal average person davens to Hashem, and we're saying, Hashem, I want all the things in Shemoneh Esrei. I want health, wealth, happiness, tons of money, quick, instant gratification, instant everything, what we daven today. So a tzaddik has a right to demand it. Because the tzaddik says to Hashem, listen, I worked for you. I worked for you a good job. Now you have to pay me what I'm asking. So they don't need to ask tzedakah. A normal person, an average person, is asking Hashem for tzedakah. L'cha Hashem tzedakah. Because do we deserve it? Are we doing the job like a good worker of what the boss wants us? Not necessarily. So a Jew comes to Hashem and say, Hashem, I'm asking you for tzedakah, basically. I'm asking you to give me charity. I'm asking you to give me tzedakah. When Hashem sees that before davening, we give tzedakah to somebody else, then Hashem gives us tzedakah. If Hashem sees we don't give tzedakah and we're picky, this guy, let him go work, why should I give him? He doesn't deserve it. He doesn't. When we start getting picky with who we give tzedakah to, or if we don't give, then Hashem gets picky with us. It's not only the pasuk that says, Ani b'tzedek echsa penach, I with tzedakah will see your face. It's more than that. If we're asking Hashem for tzedakah, halachically I'm saying, then we should give tzedakah because then Hashem will react to the tzedakah that we acted and that we gave. Now, there are people that have a minig that in the middle of Vayivarach David, the Sfardim do this a lot, in the middle of Vayivarach David, they give tzedakah. Choshem, Abdullah, Vagvora, whatever, certain words over there, they give tzedakah. Chabad the minig is, the custom is not to do that. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just, in Chabad, we don't do it. And somebody asked the Rebbe about giving tzedakah then, during Vayivarach David. And the Rebbe answered him, it's printed already. The Rebbe answered him, if you want to do it, fine, but that doesn't take away from giving tzedakah before davening. So when a person davens before Shachris and before Mincha, it's a proper in Shulchan Aruch that before Ma'ariv, the custom is not to, because officially at night you don't give tzedakah. Even that should be the worst sin that any one of us do. But before Shachris and Mincha, it's not even a question of how much. It's the concept, before I'm davening, I give tzedakah. Another interesting thing, and this comes basically from the Arizal, that before davening, a person should accept upon themselves the mitzvah v'yohavta l'reacha kamecha. We said right before Matevu, in the Alter Rebbe Siddur, we say, Arein mekabel alai mitzvah sasei shel v'yohavta l'reacha kamecha. I accept upon myself the mitzvah to love every single Jew. Okay? Why is that? So even Kitzur brings down. The only time Hashem can give a bracha when there's peace. When there's separation amongst Jews, we don't get brachas. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the last Mishnah of the entire Mishnah, says, "L'matza HaKadosh Baruch Hu kli machzik bracha ela shalom." The only vessel for blessing that Hashem found was peace. In Sim Shalom, we say, Barchenu Avinu Kolonu Ke'echad. Simply means God bless us all together. In Tanya Perek Lamed Beis, the Alter Rebbe says, when could it be? He learns it, he translates it differently. Barchenu Avinu. He says, when can Hashem bless us? When Kolonu Ke'echad, when we're all united. So therefore, it says, it's Van Arizal, but it's interesting, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch also brings it down, that Nochen, before davening, to accept upon themselves the mitzvah of the after to love every single Jew, and then when there's unity amongst the Jews, then they get tons of bracha and blessings from above, and as the expression goes, they live happily ever after. Okay, now we're going to go to Tanya.